right, and welcome to the next episode of the Unbiased Truth Podcast, hashtag Because Real Estate. This is the episode where we talk about singular topics affecting the real estate industry. And I am joined by an actual panel today, outside of just me and Christy. And we have Christy, team leader in Move Virginia, powered by Keller Williams. We have Ricky, who is a top producing solo agent, also powered by Keller Williams. And we have Kristin, member of Mission Realty, powered by EXP, and a squad leader and a top producing agent over there. So appreciate you guys coming in, hanging out today.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Happy to be here.
That's right. So today's topic, we're going to talk about mistakes, and that could be mistakes that we've made as individuals. We've seen other people make. It could be real estate related, business related. We talk about mistakes that clients have made. Because one of the things that we've seen since we've started shifting and things like that is just lots of mistakes are being made. Whether it's repair negotiations or people not being prepared for a slowdown because they don't really understand business and things like that. But here they are. Because one of the fascinating parts of this industry is that whether you're an agent or a home inspector, particularly, that you get your license and you're good to go, right? You don't have to go join a company. Yes, you have a brokerage, to hang your license at as an agent, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have to show up for anything, right? I mean, you're still just,
the support and training.
Yeah. I mean, and for home inspectors, if you don't want to work for somebody, you just start off with your own,
right?
And there's a lot of expensive mistakes that I'm sure we've either made or seen other people make, and that's for most businesses is you get to see those expensive mistakes, and that's the downside or the fun side of entrepreneurship is mistakes and lessons are often expensive to learn. So what's your thoughts?
Everybody's looking at me. Well, it's interesting. I think the first thing I was going to talk about is just pricing in the shifting market, which it's really interesting because I don't know if y'all experienced this weekend, but I showed like 12 houses and I went to give feedback to them on Monday. Was it Monday, maybe Tuesday? You know how it comes through? And 10 of them were pending.
Right.
So what that tells me is either those agents prepared their sellers to price it correctly because then they're selling still very quickly. And these were all new listings. Maybe one of them had been on the market for a little while. So what this tells me is agents who are experienced or have maybe not even been through a shift, but have heard what's coming or heard that we need to be prepared for this, have given their sellers solid advice on how to price a home. And the ones that are still sitting over the weekend, well, there you go. I mean, they're still sitting. Those were ones that weren't selected. And I'm talking about in like 3 different areas. Were they very well-known popular areas to be in? Yes, they were. So I can't say that for every area that we have right now. But if you're priced right, then it's definitely going to go under contract fast.
Yeah, and I've still noticed that because I did a walkthrough Saturday. Yeah, this past Saturday, because of a house in a desirable area that they were expecting multiple offers in, and the clients themselves had lost out on multiple offers. Still, so it's still happening. There's still some things. So pricing right, and I think we saw a lot of that in the beginning of the market shift. Price reductions and price corrections or whatever. It was just like a flood of them.
Right.
So.
Well, and I think, Christy, that you hit the nail on the head. You said if you know the market and you set those expectations with the seller, I feel like so many mistakes are made when the right expectations are not set.
Correct.
That's with other agents, buyers, sellers, inspectors, anything in our industry. And so I think that we have to be prepared. And this market shift is a little different because it's so different than the boom 2 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And then we had this weird pocket the last quarter of this past year. And now things are starting to open back up again. And so it's setting those right expectations with the buyers, the sellers, so that they price it right or they know what to expect on an inspection and buyers know what to expect.
And I felt like I wasn't prepared for that. So this weekend when we went out to look at houses, we were looking at the top of their price point.
Right.
Thinking, we'll be okay. Well, the way that 2 of the 8 listings were priced so well that they ended up going like 30 or 40 over. So I had to have a conversation with them to say, guys, what this is telling us is we probably need to start looking in a lower price point, knowing that we're still going to have to escalate to that. And that's all about like knowing your market and the mistakes that you can make going into this.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. It has also been my experience since maybe mid-December. My clients have been experiencing multiple offer situations. I feel like one thing that has happened is that mortgage rates have kind of leveled off, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even though the Federal Reserve is maybe increasing the percentage rate that they charge banks to borrow from them, as mortgage applications ticked down, as the demand for mortgage applications or mortgages lowered, then interest rates kind of leveled off and kind of even came back down. We saw a little bit of ticking back down, which was great. And so I feel consumer confidence in the value of homes and the current rate of mortgages, like around, let's say, high 5s, low 6s, is still a fantastic opportunity, right? So, and as homes are being priced more appropriately, there was a situation this past weekend where my clients made an offer on a house. The house was priced at $365,000. They had escalated to $385,000. Did not win. There were 5 offers on this house, and the winning offer, I know the agent who had put it under contract. That agent told me that their clients, they had a cash offer, but they were willing to escalate to $421,000. So to me, it feels like the last 2 years again. I think that this spring market, as long as the mortgage rates stay, that, if you're pricing homes right, I think that it would be a mistake to not tell your clients, your sellers, hey, let's price it a little bit low and get people in the door and look at where it can go.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Just because you're listing it for $365,000 doesn't mean that's where you're going to fall flat.
Right.
If you do a good job listing it, you can get much more.
Yeah. And listing or pricing a house, it's a science, right? I'm not an agent.
It's science / art.
Right.
You know?
So it's not just
strategy.
it's not just 400, put a bow on it and we're good.
Right.
And I think that's what, especially agents coming into the market in the last couple of years, they just put whatever price we want on it. It's going to go above asking and it's going to sell without any actual thought process.
Didn't have to
into
do
it.
the research.
And now,
appraisal,
now the last couple of months we've seen that those mistakes, right? And sometimes you can cover up mistakes, right? Or you can hide your shortcomings, in any industry. But for this one, you can hide those shortcomings in the last couple of years because of how the market was, right? I may not be strong in negotiations. I don't have to negotiate, right?
Right.
I don't understand how this is done, but I don't have to worry about that right now. And now those shortcomings have shown themselves a little bit, and I think you're right. They're starting to work themselves out, a little bit. But I think it's an art or a science. You can't just next door is sold for and then be done with it. Or the average price according to Zillow says, and that's what we'll do for it. I think there's a little bit more than that, and I think as especially newer agents, you've really got to understand that there's something more about it than just
absolutely
numbers, making up numbers.
We've noticed on our team to that point that we have to do a lot more training. We actively recruit to our team, and even in 3 years, the past 3 years of business, you think, well, that's a seasoned agent. In 3 years, they've done a good many deals. But to your point, they haven't had to learn the art of negotiating or writing a repair addendum, because these were the things that were being waived. You didn't have to negotiate an appraisal shortfall. So we have to, as leaders, revisit trainings and giving our clients and our agents the opportunity to realize what's actually happening.
Yeah.
So what do you guys see some of the common mistakes made in the contracts and negotiations and things like that? I know for home inspectors, we don't write contracts, per se. We have our agreement. But one of the biggest things that you see home inspectors get dinged for when they get reported to DPOR is that their reports aren't up to the state standards, right? Because the state says that we have to put certain things in our reports. We have to have our license number and expiration date has to be in the report, right? It has to be in our contract. And there's a lot of people who don't do that, so, those are easy mistakes to make. I say easy, but it's also easy to find too, because again, it's all spelled out in state law on what is required to be in the report. It's required for us to document when we start, when we stop. All that stuff's requirements, and still so many people fall short on that. So what do you see as far as agents in your contracts?
Well, one is just not filling it out completely. And you, as a listing agent, getting it, and you're like, come on. Just like, I need to know the type of financing. Yeah. I need to know how much they're putting down. I need a pre-approval letter. And, like, there's, like, some basic things that I think as a new agent who maybe hasn't had all the training or the experience doesn't understand that. I mean, even, no offense, even a contracts class is not the answer to that. Right. So I feel like there has to be, I know there's an advanced contracts class out there, but if you're a part of a team, you're getting the support in a much different way. On our team, when we had a buyer's agent, I had her submit the contract to me first and let me look over it before. And there's just little things that they would miss, checking off boxes and an addendum, adding an addendum, or getting the residential property disclosure signed. So completing a contract is definitely one of the big ones for me as a listing agent. When you're in a multiple offer situation, you don't have time to go back and follow up and be like, I need you to go back to this contract and revisit this, fill it out, make these corrections, and then resubmit it. So doing it right the first time. And it also, I feel like I'm going to pay attention to that agent. Like, good job. Way to get it in.
Absolutely.
In a timely manner. Way to present to me a bullet point list of a snapshot of what the offer includes, and then include all the documentation with it. I think that's big.
Yeah,
because it shows what you're looking forward to in the transaction. If someone misses things or makes mistakes, of course we all make mistakes. Ricky and I were talking about that earlier, and that's okay. And we're all in this together. So it's nice to throw someone a bone sometimes when you see a mistake. But if that's a reoccurring thing, that just sets a bad precedence for what's to come.
For sure.
I think that a lot of mistakes in contract writing especially are made because many times, especially in a hot market, there is a sense of great urgency to get an offer in, right? So many of the mistakes are very minor. Like Christy says, they won't check whether it's conventional, VHDA, FHA, what the financing type is. But that's pertinent information, and you might not win the contract based on that, or the offer on the house, if there's multiple offers, because an agent might not want to, if your offer is the same as somebody else's, but your contract isn't complete, the listing agent may not want to work with you, because your attention to detail is not there. So I would say to any agent, whether you are new, whether you've been doing it a long time, because also familiarity with the contract will often breed an attitude of, I'm good. Like, I don't need to double check, right? So what I do is I write the contract, I walk away for a little bit, I come back and I read over it again, and then before I send it, I read it again and double check all of my documents and make sure that everything is there. And like Christy said too, I will, in the email, here's the offer, here are the bullet points that outline all the terms, the financing type, purchase price, anything that's pertinent info, and I match it up. I read through the contract while I'm writing that, and that's a way to triple check all of those terms. I did one time have a listing where the buyer's agent, who has been in the business for, let's say, 25 years, and is a wonderful agent, she sent me the repair addendum, and they wanted the basement waterproofed, right? But they had accidentally written that the buyer will pay for the waterproofing of the basement, and it was signed. And so my client could have signed off on it, and we would have been like, you guys said, this is the contract. But I, spoke with my client and I said, look, this is obviously a mistake. And she said, yeah, absolutely. Let them know hey, did you mean that your buyers are going to pay for the repairs? And she was like, oh my goodness, no. And I think it was one of those situations. It was a hot market. She's a very busy agent. She has many transactions going, and she just made a mistake, so.
And that goes, one of the fun things for me to see is when, because every now and then I'll pull up, the Zillow listing, right? And it'll say new water heater, new HVAC. And then I get there, I'm like, define new, right? If by 10 years old,
Newer?
you mean new.
Right, that's a lot
correct.
of newer.
Newer.
And
Subjective.
then you just see everybody's eyes light up at that point. Like, looks like we're getting a new water heater. Because you can't advertise new unless it's new.
Right.
And I don't see it that often, but you see it often enough, where water heater is not too bad, but that really eats into your commission. If you're the agent, HVACs, go ahead and forget about it.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. They're expensive mistakes to make.
Yeah.
I would say another one is read the agent only comments. As agents, we have access to additional information that's not public record. The client doesn't see it, so it's our job to pay attention to that. And as a listing agent, I'm sure you all have felt this at some point. If I put important information in that agent only comment section, especially information that has to go in the contract itself, and you didn't pay attention and you re-ask me the question I've already answered, or I wanted it in the contract and you did not put it in there, again, that's just one thing that can very easily be avoided if you're paying attention.
Right.
And that's all a part of presenting a correct, good contract and representing your client, because again, we're the professionals.
Right.
We're supposed to know these things and do these things because the client's not going to know if it's wrong or wasn't done.
So what do you see clients do? Mistakes that they've made?
Well,
Not trusting the professional.
That's pretty much it.
Thinking they know Zillow's giving them all the answers and they don't need any other advice.
Calling their dad to double check
That's right.
everyone's
Right. Trusting someone outside the industry. In particular, this is something that happened to me multiple times. Clients working on pre-approval. When you first meet a buyer and you get them with a trusted lender, that has a great loan product that's going to work perfectly for them. And let's say they're financing, or let's say that they're an independent contractor, and so they get 1099s. That's a little bit harder for a lender to work with than just a W-2, right? So thinking, this lender is asking me for so many things, like this is out of hand. Like, why is this lender picking on me like this? And then getting upset and not wanting to move forward with the process, and talking to somebody outside of lending who said, well, when I bought my house, it was like this, and certainly I think that, yes, trust your professional. There's a reason that you hire your realtor. You trusted them when you met, just stick with them, and don't look to people outside the industry for ideas of what is going on inside your transaction, because you're going to make a mess of it.
It always surprises me or fascinates me when you hear somebody, and I get it. It's the reputation of the industries, right? I mean, good, bad, or indifferent. But you'll get somebody say, well, I'm going to go pick my own home inspector, or I want to go pick my own lender because I was told not to trust the agent, And it's like, well, if you're trusting the agent with a $500,000 of your money, why would you not trust them for these other things? And if there's a trust issue there, why are you working with that agent?
Right.
And don't get me wrong, I like it when some clients look for their own home inspectors because they call us, right? That's how we get in front of other agents and get business. But it's just the reasoning behind it. It's why I don't trust them. Why are you even with them? When this is the largest investment this is the most money you're ever going to make. And so why are you not listening to them? And if it's an issue, other than, well, my sister said, or whatever, my neighbor said, then you need to find a different realtor, one that you can trust, because it just makes no sense to me. Yeah. But then again, people don't make sense to me. So there's that. So.
Well, and that's probably where, a first mistake would happen. We have to do our due diligence to represent someone ethically and legally in all the things. But, buyers also have to do their due diligence and vet someone. If if they don't trust them from the very beginning, then they should go and look for someone else that fits. This is a two-way working relationship between client, agent, and then we bring in our other trusted, vetted sources for things. Yeah. So, it's when they resist that piece of the process, then you just get started off on the wrong foot.
Yeah, I did an inspection yesterday where the client came in and said, hey, I haven't talked to the lender yet, but I got a better quote from somebody else. And I won't say who it was, but it rhymed with Rocket Mortgage. And while I got to overhear that conversation, because you can just tell the agent was like, and she's explaining all the reasons why. And this is a common misconception because the client's like, I know you probably get something from them. And it's like, no, I don't get anything from this lender. They're just local. We like dealing with local people. Right. It's easier. And when that lender got on the phone, because they put them on speakerphone, so break the news that they're changing lenders, she started asking the questions. Well, what's your rate? How many points are you buying down? What all the hidden fees that they haven't told you about? Right. Because all that stuff comes due. And that's what she was trying to explain to them. And she didn't have any of those answers because there was nothing on paper yet. Because they said they were going to wait till after the home inspection before they gave her anything written for that. But it just goes to show, again, the point of, well, I'm going to go on this one. And I've seen article after article about those types of companies that when it's all said and done, you're actually spending more money than you're saving because of all the fees they tack on at the end. They don't tell you about. So you get a lower rate. But
that's a hard conversation to have. It's hard to help people understand sometimes that there's always free cheddar in a mousetrap, right? Mm-hmm. That just if it looks too good to be true, probably it is. Mm-hmm. And if your realtor has presented you with 3 probably local trusted lenders, then any one of those are probably going to be better than any of those big box mortgage companies that are all online, which I have used to refinance before and it went fantastic. But the local lenders for origination, I think, is the way to go. Yeah,
because they have skin in the game. This is their local market and their local reputation on the line as well. So in our experience, an internet lender that's in Missouri, if the deal goes south and, something isn't that great, well, they're not going to lose an entire clientele most likely because they're not connected widely in this area. So to me, a local lender has more skin in the game and has something to prove by creating a good experience.
And they know our contracts. Like I've had so many times where these internet lenders will ask me a question that either they didn't notice it in the contract or it doesn't apply to a contract in our CVR MLS contract. So I'm like, did you not see that? But they don't. They don't get it. They don't understand. Right. So the way Texas does it is very different than the way Virginia does it. I'm licensed in both, and I can tell you it's very different. So when you get these internet lenders that ask you these questions, I'm like, that is a Texas thing. That is not a Virginia thing. So
yeah, I dealt with one not too long ago, and it was a California thing. In California,
I can only imagine.
Yeah, the whole inspection. Well, in California. And the agents were just done. You could tell. Yes. I knew what they wanted to say, but they were keeping it all inside, using their inside voice. So.
I think another big mistake that our clients make is resisting the process as it should be. When they come to us, we do a lot of role play with our team on how to work around these objections that these clients present to us. And someone who wants to see 50 houses but refuses to speak to a lender about a pre-approval, or getting your pre-approval and automatically, jumping past a next step, that sort of thing. So, we work hard on scripts to let these clients understand, like, there is a process for a reason, and it's for their benefit just as much as ours, but mainly for them, so that everything runs smoothly in their transaction and they have a good buying or selling experience, because they're going to make things harder for themselves if they're resisting our professional advice on what to do next.
We see, I think, on our end, clients, one of the mistakes that they make is one, price shopping, right? They price shop for inspectors.
Wow.
Yeah, it's weird, right?
That is weird.
And it's strictly, it is. It is. Well, I can, do you price match? No, I don't. But it also goes to scope of work as well, right? You know, you can get a contractor to do something for $5,000, you get a contractor for something for $3,000, but that scope of work may be vastly different. Right. You know, so that 3,000 guys going to fall short because his scope of work is different. So it's the same thing with inspectors. You know, what's the scope of work that the inspector does? You know, do they do, you know, A, B, and C? If they don't, then that justifies why their price is $200. You know,
I did have that happen where it was $1 million home too, and these buyers just wanted to go the cheap route. I had given the name that they should have gone with, and the inspector pulls up, no offense, in a Prius. I was like, oh, this is not good. And like 2 weeks after closing, he completely, like, the inspection also took about an hour on a 4,000 square foot home. That's another, oh my goodness, what in the world?
You can't manage to cover.
And then the report was like 7 pages.
Right.
And then they completely missed 2 huge leaks.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because that's a huge investment.
Oh my
and
goodness.
Then to raise Cain over $200 difference in an inspection, it makes no sense.
$50.
Usually, we see people go to somebody else because they were $25 or $50 cheaper than we were, or, you know, company A or whatever. Right. And it's absolutely ridiculous.
And you're spending thousands of dollars to buy the house.
Yep.
And you don't want to spend a couple $100s on an inspection that could save you and your long-term investment.
Oh yeah,
a lot of money and headache.
Yeah, so we see that a lot. We see that mistake of price shopping. And we've, you know, I was at an event to protect the names of the innocent and the guilty, but we got our 5 minutes to talk in front of everybody. And I was going over that listing leads program, right? You know, that's the only thing I talked about, you know, so how we can help you capture your own leads, right, with your listings. And, you know, this is how the program works. First question by an agent. Anybody got any questions? First question. Yep. What's your price? Cool. You know, what does that do for anything? You know, you're not paying for it. So why do you care as the agent what my prices are? Other than, you know, yes, you may want to let your clients know, but that's typically not the first question if you actually care about the product. Right. You know, that comes later. So, but yeah, the price shopping is definitely a fun one from time to time. Well, I just got a message before we started asking if we can go cheaper on a crawl space inspection. Because they've already paid full price for a home inspection for somebody else, which is fine, but that inspector couldn't fit in the crawl space. So they called us for just the robot. And we charge a $200 trip fee. That's our base price, right? Eggs are $10 a dozen. You know, that's our base price. You know, gas is $3.20.
Can they pay you in eggs?
And there you know, can we go cheaper? No, you know, because Inspector A got full price. Mm-hmm. Why are we expected to take less of a price because your client, I won't say chose the wrong inspector, you know, because they may be a very good inspector, but he doesn't have the tools for that particular
fulfill his job description.
So that now and we've had one agent, and I don't know how much money that she's cost the clients because they can't do this. Hey, call 360, they can do that. So now you're paying $500 for inspection plus an extra whatever we're charging for these things that the first inspector couldn't do. You know, so so scope of work matters. You know, when it comes time for home inspections.
I know a contractor that when people ask him, you know, if you can do it cheaper, he will say, I can either do it cheap or I can do it good, but I can't do both of those.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, was it speed, cost, and quality? You can have 2 out of 3. You can't have all 3.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, because if someone says they can do all 3, they're lying.
And back to what Christy was saying on $1 million house, but even if it's a $180,000 house and you're a first-time home buyer, that's a huge investment to you. Why would you risk missing a potential $1,000 repair trying to save $50 on the home inspection? Just find the best home inspector you can, obviously Sidney Lucas at 360 Home Inspection, and make sure that you're protecting that investment. You know, it's a little bit out of pocket up front to make sure that in the long game you're well protected and your investment is well protected.
Yeah, and one of the other things that we see mistakes is people just don't listen to us. You know, you know, we see Richmond, Old City, Colonial Heights, Petersburg, old areas with old pipes and stuff like that. Like, hey, you got cast iron, you know, for example. We can't see inside cast iron. You know, we're here for 2 hours. I can't stress the system enough. to know if there's a true issue, that's going to pop up a week after you live here. And then, you can get insurance on it. Insurance rider to help cover the cost. If there's an issue with the cast iron, you can call this company to get it scoped. That way you know what you're getting into. Whatever. And they don't listen to any of that. They don't do any of that. And then, 2 months later, hey, our cast iron failed. And well, did you get insurance? No. Did you get a scope? No. I can't help you. We told you it was there. We told you it could be a problem. We told you it's 100 years old. That's just why we have the entire report. And you should read the entire report. I know agents only like, the summary, right? But that's what you go off of, right? I mean, for a client, the rest of the report is for you. And there's a lot of information in there. And that information's outside of the real estate world, right? Yeah. Because if you want your HVAC serviced, then that's something that you just need to do. You can't negotiate and have the seller, hey, we want it serviced most of the time, right? But they just don't read the contracts or the inspection report, or they don't listen to the advice. They're like, it's not that big of a deal. And then it's $1,000 fix later. Right. And now all of a sudden everybody's shocked and appalled, even though you were told this up front. So just not listening, not following up, not asking questions, is something else that we see.
And I think a lot of that, it falls back on, maybe some mistakes, or maybe not mistakes per se, but, just doing our job and adding value. Yeah. And it's our job to make sure that the client, you do a really good job of saying, this is a snapshot in time, we're not here, or, pointing out things like, you may not see this on the report, or you'll see it on the report, but it's basically for your informational purposes only. It's not a true defect or things like that. So you're very good about addressing those subjects. And then, the agents that put the time in to tell the client, read over this report. When you get this later, I'm going to read over it. You write your main things. What are you concerned about? What questions do you have? I'm going to write the things that my professional opinion would be, these are the most important things. And then having another conversation post-inspection about those items. Right. And I know for me, I always say, okay, these are, ABC is what is, the seller is not going to repair these things, but, this is your to-do list. This is your punch list. When you move in the house, I would advise that you have these things addressed. Yeah. And then, of course, it's up to them to do their part.
Yeah. I mean, I think also that a lot of times you'll bring things up that you kind of need to foresee. So you'll say, like, this may not be an issue now, but it may be down the road. Yeah. And sometimes I feel like it's good, like, I'll take notes so that they're like so overwhelmed with everything that you're telling them, to like bullet point something later on down the road. Remember, like, I'll pull it out, our OneNote, like it's a program we use for that file, and just say, remember this, this, and this. And so then later I can go back, or have the assistant go back and be like, remember, he brought this up in the inspection. So make sure you do this too. Even though it's not going to be on the report, just to plan ahead for this, that kind of thing.
And that's one of the things that I've learned is that, the home buying process, it's the here and now. Right. And there's so many people who don't understand the home buying process, let alone what it actually costs to buy a home and live in a home, right? So, and that's why we do some of that stuff, because, like, hey, this is a maintenance item. You can't just set it and forget it. You're going to have to come back and address this at some point. Because there's so many people just, if you're having trouble affording all of this now, what's going to happen in 6 months when that HVAC goes, or, this becomes an issue later on and whatnot, because that's nobody's at this table's fault, because at the end of the day, you're an adult, you make adult decisions. Right. And if your adult decision is, I want to buy this house that I can barely afford with a HVAC or a roof that's probably not going to last very much longer, well, all we can do is give you the information and guide you. Right. You got to make that decision. So it's important that stuff, it gets brought up. Like, hey, just remember, that bill is going to come due at some point. Right. Exactly. And I tell clients all the time, I say, if you're here for 20 years, this is going to be a you problem.
Right.
If you're
Right.
here in 3 to 5 years, it
That's
may not
good.
be a you problem.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
So just keep that in mind. So yeah, absolutely. So the only one that brought notes that's prepared was Kristin.
I did my homework.
Yeah. So what you got on your notes?
So I wrote down a couple of things. It's not so much the mistakes that we make once we're in the industry, more so as agents just starting out. You know, what I wished that someone told me when I started, or what I wish I believed in when I started. So, you know, one of the first ones that I ever wrote down, because I have actually, we do a lot of goal planning and core values and mission statements with our team, and then we have those individually for our families. So one of my core values is to treat every negative as a blessing or a lesson. And so for me, one of the biggest things, I hate to fail. I have a fear of failure in my life. And, you know, when you're starting out in an industry, I think there's this, you know, idea of real estate being so easy.
Oh, yeah.
It's so easy. You get to make your own schedule. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Or we don't
Make
really
so much
work.
money.
You know, I work a 9 to 5, but you don't really work, you know, or you're home
Right.
all the time.
Right.
You know, this misconception around it. But a producing agent, a good producing agent, works really hard. And we have to be even more disciplined and motivated and determined, because even on a team, we're independent agents.
Right.
And you all know you're independent agents. You don't have someone looking over your shoulder, pointing out if you make a mistake or telling you that you have to do something different. And that, so we have to be our own boss. But that also means that we have to learn. And so I just think that don't be afraid to fail is a huge lesson when starting out, because it's more than what most people assume it's going to be.
Right.
We call it failing forward.
Right.
So it's okay to fail and it's okay to make mistakes. We're human.
Absolutely.
But just learn from it and don't give up.
Yeah. I think it can also be so overwhelming too that they forget what's important to focus on at the beginning.
Yes.
Like they want to make sure they have all the gear. They want to make sure they have all the swag. They want to make sure their social media account's set up. And then like, now it's time to go take buyers out. Do you know how to set them up on a search? Oh my goodness, no.
Yes. Or write a contract.
Or write a contract. So yeah, that's part of, for sure. And you know, I think another thing would be for new agents, like if you're not a part of a team and you're a solo agent, it's okay to cling to someone or ask for help.
Absolutely.
Like if it's not your broker, find someone who's a high producing agent in your brokerage who you feel comfortable going to.
Right.
And even if you don't, you're going to have to step out of your comfort zone. I think the other thing is we get so, if you're a career switcher, well, you came from a 9 to 5 and someone telling you what to do. So as your own boss, like, oh, wait, I don't have a supervisor that I go to for this. Like, you have to figure that out. You have to figure out who would be not the chain of command, but who do you feel like is knowledgeable enough early on and be like, I'm going to use them for support.
Right.
And then, like, the biggest thing, time blocking. I
Absolutely.
think because all of a sudden a new agent feels like they have this freedom, so to speak, or
That's right.
whatever, they think that their schedule is so flexible and so free that they can just do what they want. And then you don't stick to a schedule. And then you're like 6 months in and you got nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of it too.
Yeah, I think the time blocking is important for sure. Because if you don't, and I struggle with that. I struggle with time management.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know.
We all do.
Yeah. Well, that's why I have Courtney now. You know, because I need somebody to say no for me because I can't do it. That's what screws up my schedule. You know, I'm going to block this time off to do this. You know? And then it's like, hey, can you do an inspection? That's the only day I have left. You know, call the office. They'll tell you if I can do it or not, and the answer is going to be no. So, but no, time management. I think the what you said about going from a 9 to 5, I think that's a huge mistake that people make, is thinking that it's going to be the same, right? Because so many people are on their own now, and you're right. It's just like, well, what do I do now?
Right.
You know, before I knew what I have to do every day I come to work. You know, for me, it was the fire department. We knew exactly what our routine was every day.
Yeah.
You know, we knew on Fridays we had to do this. We knew on Saturdays we had to do that. We knew on Mondays we had to do this. It doesn't matter. But these are our routines, and there's some filler time in between. But And if something changed, someone told us it changed. You
Right.
know, we didn't have to figure it out. To where now it's like, well, what do I do now? Well, I don't have a boss. This is great. And
Right.
you're right. 4
Right.
months later, it's like, well, how come I don't have any work?
Right. I'll take a nap
Also don't
today
have
and
a
work
paycheck.
later.
That's
Yes.
right. That's right.
Yes.
Absolutely. There's a joke that realtors will work 60 hours a week to avoid working 40 hours a week because you don't necessarily love the 9 to 5. But then most days I'm up at 6 a.m. And then I work until maybe, I don't know, 9 or 10 at night, like on and off. I mean, there are many different facets of my day. Like this is work now, it's a great joy to be here. But this is also something that I put into my schedule and made sure, I had time for today, because after this, I'm going to show houses and, I was working on my business all morning since, probably about 7 a.m. really. So
Yeah, you get to set your schedule. You get to pick which 20 hours a day you want to work.
that's
Right.
That's right.
That's right.
I heard from a mentor once, and it has always stuck with me about, I've never been one to, schedule things, write it in, because I'm like, I got a husband who works nights and 3 kids, and every excuse of why my time is never the same. But, she had said, if you write it down in your calendar and stick to it, obviously that's the biggest thing. If it's written, you stick to it. But she color coordinated her tasks. And she always had green time. Green time was what you had to do to make money. So as agents and even inspectors, we have to network. We have to talk to people.
Right.
You can't find clients, at least not to sustain a high-producing business, if we don't talk to people.
Correct.
So there's some sort of lead generation and being consistent with that. And so every day, her green spots were her money-making time, and then everything else fell in around.
Colors.
And if she didn't get anything done that day, that green spot was always accomplished, because what you do today is tomorrow's business.
Yeah.
And you can make excuses, and if you make excuses, you have nothing down the road. But if you do the hard things today, things fall into place after that. And that just always stuck with me. And that was one of the things I wrote down, like consistency, staying consistent and determined and working towards. I think some people underestimate the amount of commitment and dedication that people in the sales industries have to commit. It's not always that easy. It takes, and it doesn't have to be hard, but you have to put the work in.
Right.
It doesn't just fall into our laps.
Right.
That is a wonderful point, and it brings me to mind of one big mistake that I see many people fall into, especially when they're new in any kind of business, is thinking that they need to reinvent the wheel, right? There are many successful agents who are willing to share with you proven systems that are easy to implement if you are willing to learn, to put in the time to learn and put in the time to build those systems for yourself. There are, especially that I know, like at Keller Williams, we have lots of amazing training, and a book by Gary Keller, one of the founders of Keller Williams, called the Millionaire Real Estate Handbook. And I mean, it outlines everything that you need to do to get up and producing, and so it's a mistake, I think, to think that you need to reinvent the wheel, that you can't just take these systems and implement them and just run with that.
Yeah, I've never reinvented the wheel. Because there's always, when I was into writing policies, just calling other departments, say, hey, do you have a policy on this? Let me see it. And then it's just pulling out what they already had and how does it apply to us. Marketing, all that stuff. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel and spend so much time trying to figure out how to do something from the ground up when somewhere or someplace somebody's either tried it and it failed, so I don't have to waste my time, or they've already tried it and I can take pieces of that and build it for what we need it for. But, yeah.
Have you ever heard them say, like, success is boring? Success is waking up and once you find what works, doing that same thing, doing what works every day.
Right.
Like, that's boring, but that's what produces results.
Absolutely.
And, Ricky, I love that you brought that up because we train on imitate before you innovate.
Right.
So imitate first. And then, my career and my lifestyle is completely different than yours, I'm sure, because of, everyone has different things going on in life, different family dynamics, et cetera. And so once you figure out what to do, that's when you can, take pieces from something I learned from you and something I learned from you and back and forth, and then take certain pieces and then mesh and do what works for me.
Right.
Instead of just doing that right off the bat and feeling like I'm failing at everything.
Right. But the hard part in that too is if you're trying to imitate somebody's behavior or way of doing their business that you really aren't going to do in the end, you're picking the wrong person. Mm-hmm. So you have to really look at, you're going to be at a panel and hear 5 different realtors see how they grew their business. Mm-hmm. And what you need to do is not try to do what every single one of them are doing. Mm-hmm. Pick one of them that most emulates you, your character, the type of business you're pursuing, the type of person that you are. You know what you will or will not do. The millennials are not going to pick up the phone and call people for 3 hours. That's just not going to happen. I'm even at a place in my life where as a mom, I don't have the time to do that. Mm-hmm. So it makes more sense to do the texting. Like it's different now. It wasn't, and it's funny. They have this class through Keller Williams called Bold. And for the first probably 3 or 4 times I took it, it was lead generate for 2 to 3 hours a day. Get on the phone, make your phone calls. How many calls did you make today? They pivoted because of the time that we're in now and have changed on how that lead generation looks because it's not the same as it was. Like, so we're using texting as a method to communicate with people so much more. So the young people are using Instagram and TikTok. And I can see someone on a stage tell me all about TikTok. I'm never going to use TikTok to grow my business. For one, it's just a platform that I don't want to try to learn how to use at this point in my life. And you also have to look at your sphere. Where are the most people in your business going to be? Are they going to be from LinkedIn? Are they going to be from Facebook? Are they going to be from TikTok? Right. And then you focus in on that. I think we get so overwhelmed with hearing all these grand ideas of how people are doing their business, and we want to imitate that. Yeah. And then we're like not doing anything.
Right.
Yeah, and the texting is a good example of this, and the fact that we have 5-6 generations out there now. That's in, before I would say in the workforce, right? Because when I did classes, it was on that particular subject, it was about leadership in organizations. And you have to understand how to talk to 5 different generations, right? Because each generation is different. They don't respond the same way. But in this application, it's 5 or 6 generations that are buying houses now. And each one requires something different. Yep. Each one communicates differently. So back to the Instagram and the TikTok and things like that, and how people can texting versus phone calls, and do we, like, Courtney doesn't check emails ever.
Courtney?
No, Courtney. But it's understanding that if you want to be in certain generations as far as business goes, you have to meet how they communicate.
Right.
They're the older generation. They want answers here and now.
Yes.
So it's there.
But I also think like millennials are fickle, and they'll be like, "Oh, if you can't give it to me, I'll just go to the next person who can."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So if you're not willing to make yourself available for those,
right,
which is fine, but just know that that's probably not your demographic that you're going to focus on.
Right.
We do a lot of DISC training, and if you're not familiar with the DISC, it breaks people down. I'm sure you all have heard of it, and it breaks people down in categories, and it works the same as the love languages.
Mm-hmm.
The public knows the 5 love languages and how your partner receives that. It's the same in sales. How does your client receive? What do they need? We have to be chameleons and talk to them not the way we talk or communicate, but what they're going to receive. I'm very much emotional, and I like to explain things, and I like to be overly communicative. Well, someone who's just a very, assertive, just down to earth, like, I want what I want, and I want it right now, and I don't need all the fluff. Right. I want to look at a house, I want to put an offer in and move on. I'm not going to be their cup of tea if I'm talking about all the things, because I'm not giving them what they want.
Right.
So understanding your audience is huge. And if you don't, it's hard to teach. If you don't have some of that already when you come into the sales industry, it's kind of hard for some people to pivot their mindset.
Yeah. I used to have a realtor who would use a lead sheet where if a lead came in on one of her listings, the person who answered the phone would literally put, based on the conversation, what they were on the desk. Yes. So that when the agent responded through another phone call, a follow-up, they knew where they were at, what they were as far as their disc profile and be able to communicate that way.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's a big
That's
deal.
going to be a connection piece as well. You know someone who has kids and is worried about certain things. They're not worried about the house. They're worried about the location and what's important for their kids. And, you're going to connect with them emotionally if you can have that conversation.
Absolutely.
Not about something else that doesn't matter to them at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, the company I went through to be able to deliver disc training and assessments, they call it the platinum rule, and it's treat others how they want to be treated.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah. So you want to meet them on their level.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter what you want. The golden rule: treat others how you want to be treated, and that's fine for your neighbors.
Sure.
Whatnot. But when it's business, you need to treat people how they want to be treated.
Yeah, that's good.
Absolutely.
Yeah, within reason, of course. So we've talked about clients, we've talked about agents. Let's talk about real quick some business lessons. Because at the end of the day, whether you're a solo agent or solo inspector, or you're a part of a team, or a team leader, or a broker, you're still a business, right? And you got to know so many people that don't have a business mindset when they do this. They have. I always say, you're a home inspector or you're a business owner who happens to do home inspections. There's a lot of people who just, I'm a home inspector, and you see a lot of failures. And I would say one of the mistakes that I've seen made in that arena goes back to what you were saying about, what you do today leads to business tomorrow, but that's just marketing, right? So many people just don't market.
Yeah.
And they especially don't market when it's busy because we're busy,
Right.
why we, we'll be good, and we saw that so much during the last couple of years that when the market shifted, you saw so many home inspectors, just like, phone's not ringing. What do we do?
No pipeline.
No
They
pipeline.
just didn't have a presence anywhere.
Yeah. So, and to put it in perspective, I know one home inspection agency, that was down at least 40% year over year by the time we're said and done.
Wow.
I know another one that was 22% down in the Hampton Roads area. Both of these are multi-inspector firms. And for us, we actually ended the year only 8% down.
That's awesome.
And you're talking about a market that was routinely, the numbers were showing between 35 and 45% drop in the market year over year. Because we invested a lot of time and effort in the marketing, to where a lot of others, the mindset is, with the phone's ringing, I don't need to market, right? Because it's ringing. And then when it stops ringing, we're like, I don't have the money to market,
Right.
So you're just never marketing. And where we kind of went to a different direction of, not, if the phone stops ringing, it's, well, now we just got to pivot to type of marketing.
Right.
We can't go out and spend all the monies anymore, but that doesn't mean there's not other ways to utilize what we have.
Absolutely.
And do more cost efficient marketing. You don't have to spend a ton of money at it, depending on the market. But I think that's one of the biggest mistakes business owners make is they don't invest in marketing. They don't invest in the technology, whether it's them doing it, as a solo person, whether you hire somebody, in-house, whether you get a third party to handle that. They just don't invest in it because when they're busy, they don't see the need for it. And when it's slow, they don't have the money for it.
Right.
And it's just a roller coaster. It's a constant roller coaster
It is.
versus a lot of other companies that do it. It's still can be a roller coaster, but it's less hills and valleys.
Yeah.
It's really high highs, and then we look for just an even keel in the lows.
Yeah.
So that's typically what I see. Biggest mistakes business owners make.
I have two.
Yeah.
One I made last year myself, and I'm sharing this, and I've been in the business since 2006. As a seasoned agent, I made a huge mistake because I went into a listing appointment with the mindset of, what do we need to do to get this house sold? And I feel like us as realtors are also investors. And my mindset has shifted because I very easily could have purchased that property myself because I knew what the seller needed for it, and then turn around and flipped it because we had a huge lag time between when it could go on the market and when I went on the listing appointment. So my mindset has changed that you're also an investor. You're teaching other people how to invest in real estate, but so you are an investor. So my mindset has changed now. Every time I go into a listing appointment, could this be a property that I could add to my portfolio to be a listing, to be a rental property or a flip for me? And I think that's big. Another big thing is P&Ls. I think that realtors don't understand the value of their paycheck. And at the beginning, we live like paycheck to paycheck. So commission check to commission check. So I feel like if you could learn early on, like a system on how to distribute what you're making, to save for taxes, to save for your pipeline, to save for marketing, to save to grow your business because you are a business owner, that would have been huge to like really put that in place early on in my business.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I've got two as well to piggyback on that. You know, one thing that we actually just did a training this past week on is as independent agents, you know, in our industries, you know, not everyone is an independent contractor of some sort,
Right.
but, you know, we all started our own business and, you know, finding the value in creating an LLC or an S Corp and things like that, and talking to a financial advisor and an advisor for whatever the case may be. I think that's super important, and that's often pushed to the back burner because you get that, it's that instant gratification. I just made $5,000.
Right.
Like,
And
this
I
is
hadn't made
great.
anything in 3 months. So this is like awesome.
Right. But to sustain long term, and smart business people do learn to invest their money and use it wisely. So definitely that's a big one. And then the second one, Christy, you actually touched on it earlier, is leaning into your sphere. Sidney and I talk all the time about business to business networking. You know, we're a part of different organizations for network groups, but we have found the value in networking with other business owners. It is a full 360. We provide value to each other because we know we work well. We have the same core values and that sort of thing. We provide value to our clients because whatever the client needs, we have a trusted source for that.
Yep.
If you need an electrician, if you need an accountant, if you need an inspector. So it becomes valuable to everyone else as well. And one of my pet peeves with especially newer agents is they say, well, I don't know anyone. I don't want to cold call, but I don't know anyone. Everyone knows everyone. Right. And you don't have to know their full life story to make a connection. Yeah. So leaning into the people that you're around and fostering those relationships personally and business wise, that it's going to build business in the end, and not coming across salesy from the get-go.
Right.
But, you know, people want to talk about themselves and people want to feel important to someone. So you just touching, you know, hey, how was your Christmas? You meet with your family?
We don't have to go
Let
with
them talk.
Who do you know to buy, sell, or invest in real estate?
Exactly. Exactly. And, you know, 2 months later, they post something on Facebook, their kid won an award. And you're like, hey, I saw that, you know, congratulations.
Yep,
and it's those constant connections. I've, you know, not to brag, but I say it to prove a point. I've helped my locksmith, my the lady who makes my wooden signs, a MLM makeup lady. You know, I've helped multiple business owners buy houses, but because I've invested in their business and fostered that relationship. And so there's so much that can come of it. It's definitely business and money for both parties and value to others outside of that.
So I've had agents ask me, first time I've ever met them, right? First time on a home inspection, like, so if you know anybody that's buying or selling a house, you know, here's my card. And like first, like you know, this is what I do, right? I know like
you sigh and roll your eyes.
Right. And two, you know, I know you don't know me, but I don't talk to anybody, literally. Right? So I don't know.
Sidney does not do people.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm the last person that's going to be able to help you with that. So what you got, Ricky?
So one mistake that I made in my career as a real estate agent was not hiring help sooner. As a solo agent, it's really easy to try to just carry everything yourself. That's kind of who I am anyway. I have always had difficulty delegating work to people and trusting that they will do the caliber of work that I feel I would do myself. But this year, I have hired some help to help me with tasks like social marketing, really, social media management, like designs for when I have a new listing, you know, things that can go out, again, on social media or flyers for open houses, things like that. And transaction coordination is one that, you know, for years I did not have a transaction coordinator because I was like, I can move these documents around. But really what that does is takes away from the time of the realtor's real jobs, which are lead generation, going on appointments, basically setting appointments, going on appointments, negotiating contracts, and that's pretty much it.
Your money making pieces.
Correct. So like 20% of what you do makes 80% of your income, you know? And so I was running around doing 100% of all these things for so long that I wonder how much money did I leave on the table by trying to save the money of, you know, paying somebody $275 per transaction or whatever the going rate for transaction coordinators is. It's really, again, it goes back to what we said, when you have $1 million house and you're trying to save $200 on the home inspection, what are you doing? It takes money to make money, right? So that's something that in hindsight, I probably could have brought someone on year one, you know?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And treating every transaction or every deal as the human being, and you know, whether you're going to make $10 or $10,000.
Right.
You know, I think it's important to make people feel important, because oftentimes it's the little guy that you show them what no one else is spending the time to do, and they could end up being your biggest referring partners.
That's right.
And so I, as a business owner, I think that's super important, because I know a lot of people who get caught up in, well, I only want the luxury clients and I only want, you know, this and that. So it's good to have, you know, the clientele that you would prefer, but I would say don't cut out the little man, because you never know what that could turn into.
Right.
Someone that you make $10 on, they could refer you to someone that you turn around, you make $10,000. So definitely treating people as people and not just transactions.
Yeah.
Good.
All right. Last question as we wrap it up. One thing you wish you would have known when you started?
Ooh, just one?
Just one.
Just
You
one.
had one thing.
Do you see my list here?
I see you.
Good, you go first.
Okay, what haven't I said? Let's see. I mean, we've talked about most of it.
I know this is a tough
The
one.
one
We have talked about
thing.
a lot.
We have. Yeah, and I think it's so important. There's one more thing I've written down. I don't know if I would classify as the most important, but again, it goes back to core values and culture and what you want to put out in the world. You know, when we're in these public industries, we have the ability to put out negative or positive and to influence people and inspire people or whatever the case may be. So one thing is doing what's right, even when it's not popular or productive or, you know, financially sustainable. My husband jokes with me. Sometimes he says, well, you do a really good job of talking people out of buying a house when your job is supposed to be talking them into buying a house. But I know that I couldn't sleep at night if I let someone make the wrong decision or settle or what would be a bad investment for them, because I'm the professional. They're looking to me for that value. I need to provide that. And so that doesn't always make me money right away. And maybe it's not the popular opinion or thing to do, but at the end of the day, I can go to sleep knowing that I've done what's right for me and what I consider the best thing for my clients. And I think that that's big for everyone in our relative industries to remember.
Yeah. I think that finding your why, and I think finding your why is like the driving force behind everything that you do. And when you find your why of why you're doing what you're doing, why you've chosen to go into this industry, be a part of it, what drives you to make a certain dollar amount, what's driving you to be in this business, what's driving you to partner with certain people, what's driving you to find new clients. I think when you find your why, everything else starts to fall into place. So it's that why, that passion, and then put it somewhere so that you see it every day, because it's very motivating when you see it in front of you. This is my why. For us, it's probably our kids. Our kids are a big part of our why. We're trying to show them financial stability. We're trying to show them leadership through what we do. So there's a lot of pieces of why our kids are our why. And I'm just assuming, just because as a mom, I think that's like a big part of what I want my kids to see, is that women can be business owners, and this is going to provide us as a family opportunities that we probably wouldn't have. So there's a lot of pieces to why my kids are a big part of my why, but also like just seeing that and knowing what it is, I think is a big part of it.
Absolutely.
that my insight like piggybacks on that. So when I first got into being a realtor, I didn't do a good job. I did a fantastic job of setting expectations for my clients. This is how the process goes. These are things you can expect. I did not do a great job setting their expectations of when I would be available to do the job for them. So my voicemail now says, if it's after 7 p.m., I will call you tomorrow. People would text me, call me 10:30 at night and expect me to pick up. And I don't know any other business where that would be an expectation.
Yep.
I don't call my plumber at 10:30 at night unless it's an emergency service or something like that, and expect them to answer, to just like bounce ideas off of them, you know, about which, you know, I would love to do that. And I did do it for a while, but I also have family, which is my big why, right? So I need to protect my time with them as well. So that's really it. I wish I had known very early on that it was okay to set those limits with the people that you're working with, that, hey, you know, you can't call me at 10:30 on Christmas morning and expect me to answer the phone. You know, that's just not.
It's probably not a life and death situation.
Correct.
And I think as a new agent, you're like, but this
I gotta
could
do
turn
this.
into a
Everything
contract,
seems
and
life and death.
we need to
Yes.
just move forward, and we've got to do this.
Correct.
This could be my next buyer, blah, 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 you know?
That's right.
You start
Everything
spinning.
feels very urgent, right?
Right.
And then you realize, oh, even if I answer this, if it's a repair that needs to be done, for instance, it's not going to get done until tomorrow anyway. It's not like I'm going to, you know, it's not like I'm going to solve this problem tonight. You
And
know,
that's
let's talk about it in the morning.
And that's where business owners get burnt out, and where businesses fail because they don't set those boundaries. So I think that's a great point.
Yeah.
My voicemail just says, call Courtney. Stop calling me, call Courtney.
See, hire help. Like that goes back to
There
that
you
too.
go.
It's like, you know, put it on her.
Yeah.
Right.
One of the things I wish I would have, I won't say I wish I would have known, because I kind of knew it. I wish I would have implemented was understanding where I wanted to go with the business, right? Meaning that when I first started, I was like, you know what, 5 inspections a week, that's all I need to do, right? That's what I was making before.
Sure.
You know, I figured I did all the math, all the numbers, you know, so we started doing home inspections. Like, I'll do all that other stuff later. Like, if I want to do radon, I'll get radon certified later. You know, if I want to do chimneys, I'll do chimney stuff later. Not realizing that you should do that really up front when you have time. Right. You don't always have the money. That's why a lot of people don't do it, but that's part of the investment and the risk of starting a business, because once you get too busy, I don't have time to figure out 5th grade science on how to get certified in radon anymore, you know? So yeah, it's setting your business up for where do you want to be in the future. And that may involve doing some things now, even though you don't plan on using them until later, because I could have paid a couple $100 to get radon certified, even though I'm not going to buy the $1,200 monitors until much later on, right? But now it's, well, I don't have time to get radon certified because I'm fried by the time I have free time. And then I look at Gordon and Todd or somebody else and say, hey, I need you to get radon certified. So it's really mapping out where do you want to be. And even if you don't ever plan on being past a solo inspector or a solo agent, or, you know what, I'm just happy just being the average guy, you know, doing this job, doesn't mean those wants and needs won't change. So you need to set yourself up for when that may happen, you know, because you just don't know, you know. It's all fun and games. So all of a sudden you have a close call on a roof. I'm like, you know what, if I fall off a roof, there's nobody else to pick up the slack for me, and I'm in trouble. So maybe I need to start bringing people on, you know, and now you're not prepared for it. So always just map out that business plan on where you want to be.
And I've heard people talk about this too. When you set your goals, because that's a big part of our business in like September, October, we're setting goals for the next year, is also look at like a 5-year goal. So immediate is one thing, but what is that 5-year goal of where you want to be?
And that's where a lot of businesses and organizations, when they start doing like their actual strategic planning, you know, their SWOT analysis and things like that, they have a 5-year plan and a 10-year plan of where they want to be, you know, and it's always adjustable, you know.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. So I appreciate everybody's time. I think with some good discussions. I appreciate everybody coming in, and then we'll do this again in a month.
Very good.
Sounds good.
Awesome.
Thanks for having us.
Yep.